What's up, Foxy people? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a laundry room remodel, facelift. It's not really a remodel because there's no construction involved, right? So let's call it a facelift. It looks so good. Wait until you see the before and afters. I'll give you a little hint. I'm sitting in it now. Okay, so let me give you a quick little rundown before I show you all the steps that I did. This laundry room in my parents' house used to be actually a kitchen because the house that they are in used to be a duplex, like two houses, and they turned it into one big house. So this room was originally the kitchen for the upper apartment. So where the fridge and stove would have been is now where the washer and dryer are. They've been in this house for about 10 years now, and this room never really got any loving. I mean, it's the laundry room, it's where the cat litter is, like, whatever, right? I mean, it got cleaned, but it didn't get, like, a deep clean all the time, right? So it was extremely dusty, and things just get thrown in here because it's out of the way when people are coming over and whatnot, right? So it was kind of just a clutter collection kind of room. They also don't have like a usable basement here, whereas most people will store tools or paint or extra pantry items in their basement. They don't have that here because that is also another apartment, actually where my uncle lives. So again, this room was kind of used for all of that as well. Now, I really wanted to do this on a budget, of course. I did it out of my own pocket. It was my Mother's Day gift to my mom. I actually was kind of doing it just to keep me from going crazy in the lockdown, but it's also because like she deserves nice things, right? So it kind of worked out to be like a Mother's Day kind of gift for her. But by keeping it on a budget, or like the theme of keeping it on a budget, of course, my advice to you if you're doing something like this is just use what you have on hand. Don't go out and buy everything if you don't need to. So like the handles and hinges for the cupboards, instead of buying new ones, I just spray painted them the color I wanted. My mama had these random shelves just hanging around probably for like 20 years. So I just painted those and used those, right? Bins in the cupboards and whatnot. We had a ton of extra ones. So again, just use everything you have on hand and that will really save your wallet on this project. Another little budget-friendly tip that I have is that my color scheme that I wanted for this room was white, light gray, and dark gray with accents of black. So instead of buying 4 different cans of paint, I bought 2. I bought a gallon of white and a gallon of black. I painted all the white stuff that needed to get done, and then saved a little bit for any touch-ups, added a little bit of black to that white paint gallon, mixed it up, I got my light gray. Painted all the light gray that I needed, and then mixed some more black into it to get the dark gray that I wanted. And again, make sure that you keep some paint of each color off to the side because you will need it for touch-ups, and you're not going to be, especially if you're mixing it yourself, you're not going to be able to get that perfect color again, right? And then I also just had some black, I got some black spray paint for, like I said, the hinges and the handles and the ceiling fan. But I'll show you all those steps that I did to create this masterpiece. So there were a couple, I got most of the things from the dollar store that I did need, dollar store or Walmart. However, there were 2 things that I had to get from Home Depot that were on the pricier end, the backsplash being one. Now I could have got backsplash from the dollar store, and I actually did pick some up. I didn't like the way it looked. It wasn't the pattern I had in mind. So I did splurge and spend that extra money and got proper peel and stick tile from Home Depot. The other larger portion of money was the flooring. Now, in my final price list that I'm going to include at the end, I did not include the flooring in that, only because this facelift could have been done without the flooring. But my parents did want the flooring for the entire top floor done. So it wasn't just this room that got the new flooring, it was the entire top floor. So I didn't include the flooring in my final price list as well, or either. Now I will add the price list at the end and let you know exactly where I spent the money. It's all under $400. And again, with that backsplash, the backsplash alone was close to $100. So that took a big chunk out of it, right? So let me show you some before pictures right now. Okay, so I'm not going to show you the complete final product yet. You gotta wait till the end to see it, because I'm mean like that. But I am going to show you step by step how I did everything to turn it from that old 80s drab kitchen to the beautiful masterpiece that I am sitting in now. Okay guys, so here I am. I'm just emptying everything out. Like I said, this room has kind of been a collect junk room for 10 years or so. Obviously there's laundry products there, but then some of those drawers even had like oven mitts in there from when it was a kitchen. So yeah, there's lots of stuff to go through. I'm just putting them in bins, and I had my mom go through everything to see what we actually have to keep, and I found a place for, or that could either go in the garbage or be donated. This cabinet is what they use as a pantry. Again, there's no basement, so this is where it has to go. I did end up finding a different system for that, so you will see that at the end. Now this shelving unit I didn't want to get rid of because we do have another matching one that's in one of the other rooms, and they are really cool. So I didn't want to get rid of it. I just had to organize it better, and again, there was stuff in there that didn't need to be there, so I just filled it with what is usable in the laundry room. Now I'm just taking the cupboard doors off. As well, I removed the hinges and handles because I was painting everything and it was easier to spray paint or paint when it was off. Now I'm going through and just sanding everything down because it had such a glossy finish. It needs to be sanded for the paint to stick to it properly. Then I'm going in and vacuuming up all the dust and dirt. Again, a room that hasn't been deep cleaned in 10 years has a lot of dirt in there. Focusing a lot on the cupboards because I ended up putting contact paper that you will see on the shelves. And just getting rid of the cobwebs and any remaining dirt just so that it's not left under the paint, right? And then I also went through and washed all the walls just to make sure there was no remaining dirt when I went in to paint. I didn't want anything to mess up like a smooth finish. So I began by painting the cupboard doors. I didn't sand these down as much as I should have, and I really regretted that decision. I ended up having to do like 4 layers of paint on it. So just make sure that you sand it very well with high grit sandpaper. We went in and did all the white paint first before I could move on to the gray. So there's everything painted white. Now I'm just going in and I'm taping off all the trim because I wanted that to stay white. And I'm beginning cutting the edges with the light gray paint. Anytime you paint any room, make sure that you cut the edges so that when you are rolling it, you don't have to go straight up to the edge and have a problem with possibly transferring it onto the ceiling or trim or whatever. So if you cut the edges, then that gives you kind of a barrier. You don't have to go right up to the edge. These walls had wood paneling on it, like the fake paneling. So I had to go through and get in the grooves with a paintbrush before I went in with the roller, because the roller wouldn't have gotten into those grooves. And then just going in with the roller. I didn't use a primer on these walls because they were originally white. I didn't think I needed to. I only had to do about 2 coats of each color, so it covered pretty well. And then last, I'm going in with the dark gray accent wall. Again, cutting all the edges around the trim and the ceiling, as well as using the brush to get into those little grooves before I go in with the roller. Now I wanted to make sure to get everything painted in one night, because you don't want to leave the tape on overnight when paint is drying, because then if it's on too long, it will peel up the originally colored paint. So like the first coat that you did, the tape will peel it off if you leave the tape to dry too long. So I got all the painting done in one night and then was able to pull off the tape. And here is the process from day one, just with all the walls painted. It's amazing what just some paint can do to change a room, because really at this point, that's all there was the painted cupboards and walls. We put foam board up there to cover that ugly hole, and I gotta paint that. Let's have a quick reminder of what that hole looked like. Reinstall the shelf because it was too low, it was gonna run into the dryer vent, so we're just gonna raise it a bit. So the next day I went in and started adding the contact paper to the counter. I had my dad remove the sink because it's easier. That way you don't have to be so careful to cut around the sink and the faucet and whatnot. So I was able to just shove it down into the hole, and the sink ends up covering it once it goes back in. This contact paper has stuck very well. I'm very impressed with it. And then I just tucked in the edges. I didn't care about being super careful because the machines are going to go up right next to it, so you won't really see. So I'm using this spray adhesive just to tape down or stick down the edges of the contact paper that go around that trim. And then there's the finished product. It looks so good. So now my dad's just reinstalling the sink, and he did the faucets as well. He just put some caulking around the edge of the sink, like underneath. So when he placed it down again, it was sealed properly. And you don't have to worry about possibly having leaks go through the sink. And you just wipe it away, wipe up any excess. And it's sealed and looks great. Now the floor is going in. So I did have to take a break from any of my remodeling while the floor went in. I am glad that they decided to do this flooring because it makes the room look so much better. So now I'm just painting these shelves. I didn't buy these, we had them on hand. Like I said, use what you have on hand, so to keep your budget low. Some of them were off-white, some of them were wood color, so I just wanted everything to look the same white. These plastic shelves my mom had sitting around probably for like 20 years, she said, and they were like an off-white. So I knew that I could use them, but I wanted to paint them the same white that was on the walls, just so that everything matched. And then I was going in and hand painting the base of the ceiling fan because I spray painted the blades and everything. The white base would have looked really funny. You can't spray paint in the house. So there it is, all done. It came out so good. And there's the blades. I did tape off the gold strips before I painted, just because that gold accent really, really pops. So I'm just re-vacuuming up these shelves because after the sink came out and went back in, obviously there was some extra dust and debris that went down with it. So I'm just making sure there's absolutely nothing there because I'm about to install the contact paper. So then just measuring the piece I need. Now this brand actually on the back had it labeled in inches, so it was super easy to cut it. I really like that. So I decided to cut that space in half down the middle so that I'm not dealing with a big piece of contact paper flopping around. I did it in 2 sections here, obviously. So the way I like to do it is just line it up at the front and then peel the backing away as I'm smoothing it down, as you can see. Again, if you have a large piece of contact paper that you took the backing off immediately and trying to deal with that, possibly having like the far corner stick down and then you have to lift it up and all that, it's a mess. So that's just how I like to do it. I just peel off a little bit at the front, line it up, and then pull the backing away as I smooth it down as I go. Now on shelves like this, I leave the edges a little bit longer and then I'm just trimming the edge off. As you can see, it's easier to trim the edge off than possibly cutting too short and having a gap. And now I'm just reinstalling the hinges and the handles. And then reinstalling the doors onto the cupboards. Word of advice, make sure you have the hinges the right way. I had a mess up there. So now I'm installing the curtain rod, as before they only had blinds here. So I have to install the actual curtain rod. I had to use the drill to drill the hole first because it was such a thick old piece of wood. The screws wouldn't go through it. And then I decided I was going to paint the closet door just because I was looking at it and I felt like there was too much white there and I wanted to break it up a bit. It might not stay like this. This door, being super old and being repainted God knows how many times, there was like dried up paint drips. So I wasn't able to get straight lines on doing this. I did end up going in afterwards with a smaller brush and touching it up. So it does look decent, especially from far away. And now I'm just going in and installing those shelves that I painted. I'm just marking off where I want to put the shelf and lining it all up, lining up the holes with where I was going to put the anchors, and then just attaching the top of the shelf. I did realize that the underside of that I should have painted, so I did end up painting it before the final reveal. I didn't think of it when I was painting it for some reason. And I'm just erasing all my marks. And then I went through and touched up any parts that had chipped off, any paint that had transferred from one color to another. That's why I said it's very, very important to save some paint off to the side if you're mixing colors like I did. Just so that if you do have to do touch-ups, you have that paint readily available. So as you can see, I painted the underside of that shelf. It was already up on the wall when I painted it, so I'm just going through and touching up the gray paint if the white paint had transferred onto it. Same thing with these shelving. And then I'm just adding all of our laundry detergent into these glass jars I got from the dollar store. I just think they look a lot better being all in the same type of jars and being like a consistent form. This jar I'm using for the washer whiffs. It has a chalkboard label on the front, and I thought that was really a good idea so that anytime the washer whiff scent changes, we can change what type is in there. So then I'm just putting away all the laundry detergents and pods. Those black bins had like extra laundry detergent that didn't fit in the jars. And then those are the dryer sheets and dryer balls. And this is a drying rack that I got. We don't dry a lot of clothes, but it's good to have an option when you do need to dry things. And I found that really cool. It's kept out of the way if you don't need it. So then in here, I know you don't need decorations in a laundry room, but I just thought that wall was looking a little plain, and I found these decorative hearts at the dollar store, so I just thought I'd put them up there. Now I'm just going through and organizing all the pantry items to put them away in that closet. Now I didn't worry about having matching bins in here because it is obviously put away and you don't see it, and I just used what we had on hand. So I just organized things in different bins so they're easier to get to. And then I'm hanging the new curtain. Sorry for the lighting. It was really weird that day. Now I'm installing the backsplash. I ordered this stuff from Home Depot because you can't buy in the store, and they actually didn't even have the stuff in the store. It had to be shipped to the store. So I waited like 2 weeks to get this, and I still didn't even order enough. Unfortunately, you'll see in the final reveal that there is like a border around that I have to fill in still, but it looks great. I'm glad I went this route because it has all the colors that are incorporated in the room, and I think it breaks up that space, and just it looks very, very good. Like, I am so happy with it. And it's very easy to use. It all lines up. Some areas you might have to cut just to go around cupboards and whatnot, but it cuts very easily and very clean. So then I'm just cutting the access around this plug. And then I'm able to put the faceplate back on. Now I'm just adding some final steps or final pieces and little decor. Putting the laundry sorter back in. And this is the final reveal. Doesn't it look so good? Like, I'm so proud of this and so excited. I can't believe the difference that just a little bit of paint, really, that's all it really is, a little bit of paint and some decor can make to a room. It's crazy. So a couple of things I do want to point out. I call them the things I've learned through this process. If you are using contact paper for shelves and counter recovers, start from the bottom up. This is where I made a huge mistake, and I actually spent more money than I needed to because I started from the top down, like did the top cupboards and worked my way down. So I actually ran out of contact paper for the last 2 bottom shelves. Had I started from the bottom and went up, the 2 top shelves might not have contact paper, but who cares? You can't even see them. So definitely start from the bottom up, and then if you run out, who cares? Another thing I learned is to label your screws, or at least keep them all together. When I was taking off the hinges and the handles and the socket plates and the light plates and all the screws from the ceiling fan and stuff, I just put them all in a bowl so that I wouldn't lose them. And then when it was time to put everything back together, I didn't know where they went. I had to like divide them all up into like screws, count all of them, and figure out where those holes, or how many of those screws matched with how many of those holes. That makes sense, right? So make sure you keep them all together, or at least label them to make your job easier. Another thing, don't try to spray paint on a cold, windy, wet day. Doesn't work out very well. It takes forever to dry, and then even when it does dry, it doesn't dry smooth. You'll have bubbles from where like wet spots got on it, or where the wind pushed it, that kind of stuff, right? So just make sure it's not a cold, windy, wet day when you're spray painting outside. Also, when it comes to paint, latex paint peels off of plastic very, very easily. So either use acrylic paint or use a primer. And as well, when you're doing wood cabinets that has like a stain or like a glossy finish, I know I showed you guys how to sand it, or to sand it. Make sure you really, really sand it, because I kind of just sanded it very lightly, and I kind of screwed myself on that because I had to do like 4 layers of paint, where a primer would have came in handy as well. But not just that, even after 4 layers of paint, it was still chipping off super easily because I didn't take off that finish properly. So definitely do yourself a favor, sand it very, very well, and get a primer, and then you won't have to do 17 layers of paint. And the last little thing I learned that I want to pass on is, if you're taking apart a ceiling fan to repaint the blades or whatever it is, when you're putting it back together, put the anchors onto the ceiling fan base first, rather than putting them onto the blade and then trying to connect the entire blade to the base. It was so much harder doing it that way, and the weight of the blade was making the base turn when I'm trying to screw in the tiny holes. Do yourself a favor, install the anchors first and then attach the blades. Oh, and one more blonde moment thing. I don't think any of you will do this because most normal people don't do this, but when you're reattaching hinges to a cupboard door, make sure they're the right way. I attached all the hinges to all the doors, and then when I went to go attach the doors to the actual cupboards, I realized every single one of them were backwards. So either do them one at a time, like on the door and then onto the cupboard, or just make sure they're all the right way if you're going to do all the doors at once. So at the end of this, and in the description box, I will pop up a price list of exactly where my money went to. But just to explain, the only things I bought was white paint, black spray paint, 2 curtains, 2 curtain rods. You won't have to necessarily buy 2 curtain rods. We have an extra large window, so I actually only had to buy that 2nd curtain rod just to get the middle anchor. The dryer balls, the over the dryer drying rack, the backsplash, the contact paper, and then the miscellaneous decor, the baskets and the jars and the pots or the plants. That's really it. So, like I said, use what you have on hand, get creative, and save yourself a lot of money and a lot of hassle. This was such a super fun project. I absolutely loved it. Kind of want to do another one. Let's see if I can talk my parents into letting me remodel their entire house. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, make sure that you give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe along to my channel so that you are following along with every video that I post, whether it's stuff like this, Cricut tutorials, Disney planning, mommy hacks. Leave a comment down below and let me know what your favorite part of this room was. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.